Administrators, instructional coaches, and program coordinators have access to the Student Data Grids app in Homeroom. To get there, start at your Homeroom dashboard's main page, and up at the top, you're going to find these little squares, and you want to scroll to the one that says SD. Hover over it to open this box that says Student Data Grids and click Enter. Once you enter from the main page of the Student Data Grids app, you'll see a series of videos that can tell you more about how to configure certain types of columns into the data grid you want to create. This video will show you how to add some basic columns, but there are tips and tricks that you can learn along the way that will help you further customize or add some of the more complex columns like assessments, grades, or course enrollments. On the left-hand side, you'll see you have options to create a new data grid or go back to the data grids that you have saved. Today, we're going to create a new data grid, but once you create it, it saves into your My Student Data Grids folder, and you can go back to it and re-download it with a different student group or the same student group at any point in time. So when I click Create a New Data Grid, the first thing I see is a place where I can just go ahead and give it a name. So this is sample, and you don't need to mess with any of the other settings really. Go ahead and click Save. And then from here, you can navigate through the rest of the settings for your data grid by just clicking Next in the top, and it will keep moving you from one spot to the next as you go across. So the first thing you're going to want to add is any of the data columns that you want. Next to the data columns heading, you'll see this plus sign. Go ahead and click on that, and this shows you all the different options that you could include in your data grid. Within each of them, there are other settings that you could add. For example, the assessments is just one option here, but there are almost infinite ways that you could configure different assessments and include different information about each assessment, whether it's the assessment name, the date a student took it, the score they received, the performance level they earned, anything like that you can customize as you go through. So I'll show you some of the simple ones today. For example, a student's name. If you want to add a student name, you can go ahead and just click name, and it will pop it open. This will put a column into your spreadsheet that has the student's first and last name included both. If you want to set it so it shows separate columns for first name and last name or things like that, you can come over here to the actions and configure to make specialized settings for this name column, or you can delete it if you did not need that one. Then I'll go back. Some of the other ones that are common, you might want to include the student's grade level, which is over here under the enrollments, current grade level. On this one and some others, like home language or native language for a student, sometimes it pops open with two columns at the same time. And so you can just delete the second one, and then it will have that, the one you want. Again, I don't really need it to say at the top of the column, current grade level. So you might come in to configure the style, and where it shows the column heading, I can just simplify it. That will make it a little cleaner for me. You can do that. And there's a lot of other settings you could do. As you go down, you might want to add the student's ID number, their SSID, or their other ID, which would be their 90 number, their email address, their birth date. You can add a lot of other things here: graduation year expected, attendance information, referrals that they've earned. You can add graduation requirements that are met. You can add enrollments that relates to the current advisor, if it be their teacher or of any specific class, the grade level that they're in again, their school. Class would get you into where you would find the names of classes, periods that they're enrolled, terms, grades, all of that. And that one's pretty complex. You can also come down here and see credits that our students earned, grade counts for certain things, but these are a little complicated based on how that data is pulled from Skyward. It's a little different for elementary versus secondary. You can pull their risk indicator value that comes from that risk report that's on your homeroom dashboard. In assessments, I already explained that. Services is where you can go and add columns to show a student's status in all the different services we have, whether it's TVIP, LAP, special education, 504 plans, things like that. Bilingual will let you get into a little more depth around TVIP information, student placement date, how many years since they first placed in TVIP, all of their ELPA data, things like that. And then there's a few more things you can include for demographics. And you can also add in a custom column if you want to give it a heading that will just download blank and people can come in and add their own custom information into those. So that's a little quick summary of all the different options of data you have in data grids. Go ahead and play around in there with some of the simpler columns, and if you want to play around with the more complex ones, there were those videos on your data grids homepage you could watch. And if you need more support for especially around the enrollments, grades, and assessments, please feel free to reach out to me anytime.